I literally remember the first time that Linda and I began to realize we need a family economy. And it was just one Saturday, and Saturday was our allowance day, and we just had, I think, 3 little kids at the time, or maybe 4. And they were knocking on our bedroom door. And I went and opened the door, and they're lined up there with their hands out, like, "Give us our money. It's allowance day. Give us our money." And I'm just half asleep, and I'm like, this is like the welfare line. These kids they're lined up with their
On the
hands out.
dole.
Is that the kind of an economy we wanna have in our family, a welfare economy? And it was that trigger that sort of got us thinking, how could we create a system within our own home that actually operates like a microcosm of the real world, where you do work and you get paid, and you can save and you can earn and you can spend and you can budget.
Welcome to the Family Lab, where we investigate all things parenting and home management. I'm Whitney Archibald. This season is all about teaching kids self reliance, and this month we're focusing on teaching kids to earn and manage money. To go along with this month, I've created a checklist of money management skills that you can teach your kids, and you can find that for just $1 in my shop at familylabpodcast.com, or you can get each month's checklist for free if you sign up for our monthly newsletter. I hope you follow along and teach your kids along with us. My first exposure to today's guest, Richard Eyre, was watching Oprah when I was a teenager. I was totally enthralled as Richard and his wife Linda revealed their system for teaching their 9 kids to do chores and earn money around the house. When my mom bought their book, I read it along with her. Proof, according to my kids, that I was as big a nerd as they have always suspected. As I've now had kids of my own, I've read more of the books that Richard and Linda Eyre have written over the years, and their advice has definitely withstood the passage of time and countless parenting fads. So I was thrilled to finally meet Richard Eyre, especially when he helped me figure out how to handle money with my next parenting phase, sending kids off to college. We'll get to that, but first we're going to talk about how he and his wife set up their family economy so many years ago, how their kids earned money, how they learned to manage it, and how the system evolved as they grew up. It's not often that we get to see a family system all the way through childhood and then even into the next generation. And at this point, the Ayers have added 34 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren to their crew. I started our conversation by asking Richard what they were hoping to accomplish by setting up their family economy.
Well, Whitney, it's arguable that entitlement is the biggest problem kids have today. I mean, there's a lot of issues and certainly screen time and everything, but what we've found is that they all kind of go together. The more entitled a kid is, the more gadgets he has, the more screen time he has, and the less he learns how to work. And it's like a little kind of a root out of which grows all kinds of problems, and we're so oblivious to it. And the book we wrote on it is actually called The Entitlement Trap, because it is really, it traps kids. They get into that pattern where they think the world owes them a living, and money is something that their parents give them, and they should be able to have everything their friends have, and on and on and on. And it's an attitude that's exactly 180 degrees opposite from the work ethic and the responsibility and the stewardship that we want to try to teach them. It's like they're going in the wrong direction. And parents
Absolutely.
and parents have to be the ones to control it. I mean, it didn't used to be an issue, right? I mean, if you were a farmer and your kids helped you on the farm, and you didn't have to think about any of these things. But today we got to think really hard about them, because it's endemic.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's like one of my biggest fears is to raise a bunch of spoiled brats who just,
Yeah.
expect everything.
Every parent on some level wants to be generous with their kids. I mean, we want to give them everything. Our instinct is to give our kids everything.
Right.
And the actual truth that we give them more by giving them less, we sort of know that's true, but we have no idea how to approach it, you know? and
Right.
it extends all the way up the line. I mean, I think of the first our first daughter when we first took her to she went to Wellesley College in Boston, which is a very expensive liberal arts college, and she had been on the system we're going to talk about here in a minute for a lot of her life, and she had saved enough money that we had a deal that she would pay half of her tuition for her first year. And when I walked into the bursar's office with her that first day with this 18-year-old, my oldest daughter, and she takes out her checkbook and writes out a check for, four figures, a big amount, the biggest check she'd ever written,
Right.
and handed it over to the bursar and looked up at me and said, "Dad, that is a lot of money." And I said, "Well, wait till you see the one I've got to write for the other half." And then she said an amazing thing. She said, "Dad, I am really going to give this all I've got. I'm going to work hard." And I thought that's better than any lecture you could ever give a kid. And the follow-up is she wrote me a letter. I saved this somewhere. I should have looked for it. She wrote me a letter the next week saying that her three roommates, they had gotten talking about tuition and so on, and her three roommates had no idea what the cost was. They had no idea. She said, "Wait, you don't even know how much the tuition is?" "No, why, how would we know? Our parents take care of it. We don't know." And I thought, man, it's not just an issue with little kids. It carries right into adulthood.
Right. Well, and not only that, it's a big wake up call when you do suddenly have to start paying if you haven't learned along the way.
Yeah, and you have no idea. You don't know how to handle money, you don't know how to save, you don't know what compound interest is. You don't know
Right.
anything. And here's the interesting thing, and you know this with your kids. Kids from about maybe 6 or 7 up until 12 or so, it's just this golden age where they're flattered by responsibility.
Right.
They're not cynical, they're not sarcastic, they're not. That's coming, right? That'll come fairly soon. But while they're in that
For sure.
golden age, if you give them responsibility, they're like, "Wow, I can do that. I can have my own account in the family bank. I can write a check out and get money out of the family bank." That's like the biggest compliment you could give them.
Okay. So before we jump into even more details about the system, I want to know, like, obviously we're trying to teach them more than how to use money. What are some of the
Yeah.
values that you're trying to teach through this family economy?
Yeah, very perceptive question, Whitney. The money savviness and sort of the street smarts of handling money is actually it's like a byproduct. It
Right.
just comes along. The goal is to teach them self-reliance and to teach them responsibility and to teach them that they really can be independent. They can decide whether they want to do these things. So if you're a parent and you list the four biggest gifts you want to give your kid, you're probably going to say self-reliance and independence and self-confidence and the funny thing about all those words is they start with self. And so you've got to give it to the kid. You can't teach it by lecturing. You can't say, "I want you to have my self-reliance." It's got to be theirs. And
Right.
they can't learn it if you're just theorizing with them. You have to put them in a situation and they have to take the consequences. If they go through a week and they don't do their chores and they don't earn any money and they don't have any money at the end of the week, you got to be tough enough to say, "Gee, I'm sorry. I guess you won't be able to go to that. Good luck. I hope next week you do better and you'll be fine." And that's
Yeah.
really hard for some moms. In fact, I'll be honest, it was hard for Linda. Linda would say, "Well, why don't we loan you a little money so you can go to the movie and then you can pay us back?" And that you don't want to get that far into the economy. You don't want it to be a lending bank. You want it to be a savings bank.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, it is hard though. It is hard when something fun comes up and some of my kids are great savers, some of them are not at all. And
Exactly.
it's hard to let
Exactly.
them deal with the consequences, but it's crucial to the whole. I mean, that's the learning part. So
Well, think about it in the real world. People who don't ever learn those lessons are borrowing all the time and they're
Yeah.
paying 18% on their credit card loans.
Yep, and much better to have them learn it when the stakes are low, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. In fact, that's perceptive that you said that. You actually want them to make mistakes. That's where they're
Yeah.
gonna learn, you know? If your child comes in and says, "Gee, I should have saved because now I can't go to this camp," or I want those jeans and I can't afford them now. And if you're like, I know it's a tough lesson, let us help you to remind you next week so you'll do better. That's the real world, and it's so beneficial to these kids.
Yeah, even things like, my youngest son, he keeps buying, like, the cheapest Bluetooth headphones,
Yeah,
and but now he's bought them like 3 times, and so
and they
even things
break.
like
Yeah.
that, like teaching him how, like, okay, you've gotta, like, research quality and, just there's so many lessons from bad purchases.
You're so right, and a little kid can feel buyer's remorse, and it's a
Yeah,
good thing. But
for
just so
sure.
your listeners don't get confused, should I just give a kind of a bare bones sort of overview of what we mean when we say a family
Yep,
economy?
that was my next question. Yep.
We just think you start with probably two key sort of props. One is a family bank, and the more impressive it is, the more kids will respond to it. If you can find an old chest, or we had kind of a treasure chest thing that had a big padlock on it, and we wrote on it the First National Bank of our realm, so you make it as real as you can. And then you need, I like a pegboard. Charts are, they seem flimsy, but if you can find some kind of a pegboard, and let's say you've got 4 things you want your kids to remember to do each day, and when they do one, they put the peg in, and if they get all 4, then at night when they go to bed, there's a little pad of Post-it notes or whatever, and they write a number 1 through 4 according to how many of their chores they did that day, and they put it into the family bank. There's a slot in the top of the family bank. They drop it in there,
Oh.
and it's no good unless one of the parents or the tender or the babysitter initials it. Yeah, you did those 4 things. And so it's the honor system. You're not going to check them every time, but kids are pretty good about that. And if you've got a 4 on there and you're like, I didn't hear you practicing today. Are you sure you got all 4? Oh, sorry. I'll put 3, and you initial it, it goes in the bank. And then on Saturday, and I encourage dads to do this because it gets them so intimately involved with their kids. We'd say it's payday. It's not allowance day, it's payday. Let's open the bank. The bank is open now for hours. So the bank's open, and each kid finds their slips, adds them up, and how many of their pegs they got, and translates directly into how much they get paid for that week. And we like to give them a checkbook. I know checks are very old fashioned, and some of the people we've taught this to around the world have gone crazy. I mean, they have little credit cards that work only in their own family, and on and on and on. But I still kind of like the old school. Teach a kid how to write a deposit slip to put money in the bank, and teach them how to write out a check to take it out. And again, this golden age, kids who are flattered by responsibility, they love a checkbook. They love working on their signature. This is my signature. I want to get it good for my checks. And that's how they get money out of the bank. And they deposit it through, their little deposit slip. And you can get checks, you can buy them. We always used to we just get a bunch of extra checks and use ours, but take our name off and let them put theirs on. So the props, I guess what I'm saying, the bank and the pegboard and the checkbook, that's what makes it all feel real, you know, to them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
by the
Way
way,
more fun.
yeah, and most of what we've taught parents around the world is that don't leave them on that system forever. Once they turn, in our case, it was 16. Now we will take you down to Charles Schwab and open a brokerage account for you, and you'll have your own checkbooks. and you can start investing in stocks and doing other things. And if this kid started at 8, he's got 8 years of this under his belt. He knows how to write a check. He knows what an investment is. He knows what interest is. And but it's sometimes a letdown for them because we encourage the family bank that parents set up to pay quite a high interest, because the higher the interest is, the more motivated they are to save. And
Right.
there's there's a funny story with that too. I remember our oldest son, when we were introducing him to this system, and he'd been waiting because he had 2 sisters who were already in the economy, and when he turned 8, he was ready to go. And I'm explaining interest to him just to be sure he understands. And he looks at me and he says, "Dad, I don't do fractions yet. I don't know decimals yet. Could we just make it 10%? Because I know then I could just move the decimal, you know, and I could figure it out." And he actually, we were paying the girls less, and he negotiated that. And then he said, "How often do I get the interest if I save the money in the bank?" And I'm like, "Well, every year." And he's like, "Every year? Do you know how long a year is?" And make a long story short, we ended up agreeing that he would get 10% per quarter.
Ah.
Now that's a lot of interest. That's so when our 16-year-olds, we'd say, "Okay, you're 16, you can't be in the family bank anymore. Let's go down and open a Schwab account." "Well, how much interest do I get there?" "Well, maybe 5% per year." And they're like, "I'd just like to keep with the family bank."
Right?
So there's all these fun, I mean, it's the point you made earlier. There's all these fun things to talk about. Pretty soon they will say, "Gee, I spent my money again and I should have saved some of it." And then you say, "Well, would you like to know what a budget is?" A budget is a really interesting. "Oh, yes, tell me about that."
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about some of the very specifics. So you have these 4 pegs. I'm sure it changed a little bit from year to year, but what did those 4 pegs really stand for? Like what were the responsibilities each day?
Okay, now I'll tell you, but keep in mind that no one should just copy the system. What a parent
Right.
should do is say,
Right.
what are the 4 things I personally want my kids to work on the hardest? And whatever it is,
Totally.
that's what they should do. In our case, dealing with 8-year-olds, the first one was the morning peg, and that just meant you got up on time, you got ready for school, and you didn't need me to get you up, and you had your stuff together, and you got out in time to catch the school bus. That's pretty basic, but no mom wants to have to do that, or no
Right. It's
dad,
hugely
and so
helpful. Yeah.
you do that, you put the first peg in. The second peg is you come home from school and you do your family chore, and we had, a certain area of the house that was theirs, or the outside, or whatever that they had to check, and you get it done before dinner time. And then when you do, you put that second peg in. Then the third one was the practice and homework peg. They were all involved in music, so they had to get their practice done and be sure that they had their homework finished. Then they put in the next one. And the
Okay.
fourth one was the evening peg, get in bed on time. That's a big deal. Now, right away, some parents are like, "Wait, you're paying your kids to do their homework and get in bed on time? They should just do that." Yes, but what you're paying them for is taking the initiative to do it, so
Right.
that the mom
Taking
and
it off
dad
your
don't
plate.
have to be the ones. And it changes the whole dynamic of a family, because now the mom and dad are not the naggers or the, "Come on, when are you going to get this done? When are you getting in bed?" In fact, you almost, we tell parents, you've almost got to be like a banker. You've got to be sort of, you're like, "Well, if you don't do it, you don't get paid." I mean, it's not like, it's almost reverse psychology. It's like, "Well, save me money if you don't get in bed on time." You don't really say that, but if you have that attitude, it's up to you.
Yeah.
It's the real world. They're not my clothes. It's not my music lesson. It's not my homework. Because undergirding this whole thing, Whitney, is the simple concept of ownership, right?
Yeah.
If kids feel ownership for their shoes because they had to buy them and they have to put them away, And if they lose them, they're going to have to buy more. They start to feel ownership. And guess what? That'll carry over to their homework, to their grades, to their friends that they choose to have.
Right. You don't want them doing homework because you want them to. It's,
Exactly.
it's not about the
Exactly.
parents. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
we've had some trouble with that, like just realizing that we're on the same team and that all these things that we're teaching them are to help them. It's not for us. It's not for us to
Right.
look good because they have good grades, it's for their future.
A business way to say exactly what you just said is that as a parent, what you want to eventually be, not right away with little children, obviously, but you don't want to be their manager for too long. You
Right.
want to become their consultant at some point, right? What's the difference? A manager's in charge of the outcome, right? You need to do this and you need to obey me and you need to get it done. And in the child's mind, that's like, well, then it must be your homework and it must be your grades and it must be your clothes. But the minute you shift, you begin to do it gradually through this economy. Hey, I'm your helper. I'm your consultant. I want to help you do well on your grades and on your stuff that you buy. And I'm always here for you. I'll answer your questions and so on. And I'll encourage you. I mean, it's amazing how well you're doing. Good job. I'm glad that you're taking over and you have responsibility. I praise you for your responsibility. I'm just here to help. But it's your stuff, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. No, you're speaking my language. We have a whole system where I have a chart where the kids move from helper to worker to manager. And once they've
Oh, I
got the
love
manager,
that.
I'm hands off. You own that. I don't know when you do your laundry. I don't know. I'm not involved in your laundry at all. You're the manager of that and it's yours. So
I love that. I love that.
yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
You can even go, depending on the size of your family, we even we we actually promoted them into middle management in the family. Once you're
Yeah.
once you're old enough, you become a tutor to one of your younger brothers or sisters, and not just on homework. You're their tutor on eating. You're going to cut their meat up for them at the table. You're middle
That's
management.
awesome.
You're not part of the problem anymore. You just joined the management team.
Yeah, and helping get younger kids ready for bed, all those
Yeah,
things. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
and they're
awesome.
good at it. They're really
Yeah,
sometimes the older siblings are better at that stuff than we are as parents.
because they bring the fun.
Yeah, they bring the fun, and the
Yeah,
younger kids look up to them, and they can identify
totally.
with them. Yeah,
Totally. Yeah, that is my favorite part of having a big family is the watching the older ones help the younger ones.
yeah. Doesn't all it's not
Mm.
always
Oh,
we don't
yeah.
want neither of us want to imply that any of this is easy, and I don't want to
Right.
imply that, yeah, you just snap your fingers, set up a family economy, and bam, everything will be fine. It'll be a learning process. You pointed out earlier, some kids will get it instantly. They will save every dime. Other
Yep.
kids and believe me, you'll be glad you did it because it's those other kids that need it most, right?
Totally, totally. Well, let's talk about what you expect the kids to pay for then. They're earning this money. You mentioned the shoes, but what do you pay for your kids and what do you make them pay for
Boy, you're
or ask
good,
them to pay
Whitney.
for?
You're asking all the right questions in the right sequence. Because if you just do the earning side of it and it's never well defined what the spending
Right.
side of it is, you got a one-way system, right? And so and again, I don't mean to act like we know it all, but we have taught this system to thousands of parents, and it's so interesting to watch how they modify it a little according to their own situation, and that's good. One size
Hmm.
doesn't fit all. In our
Right.
case and what most of our kids do with our grandkids, although even it's interesting, even our own kids have modified it because they're like, well, this is our family and we have a little different situation. Our kids are a little different and so on. But we sort of went all the way. We're like, you're going to buy all your own clothes. You're going to buy all your own stuff. The only thing we're going to help with is sort of large purchases that really are tough for you, like if you're on the basketball team and they
Yeah.
require you to get these shoes that cost $200, we'll match it. We'll pay half of it. But we had it all written down, so it was like a contract and so on. And we kept saying to them, now look, if you don't want to buy all your stuff, we can modify this, but you'll earn less. We'll have to cut
Right.
back on how much you can earn each week. But if you're saying, hey, I'm going to do it, I'm going to step up and do it, then we'll pay you this amount. And so people say, well, how do you know how much to pay them? The best way is to sort of be honest as a parent and figure out how much you're spending on
Mhm.
those things and set it up so they can actually earn that much. And it'll
Yeah.
shock you how much it is sometimes. But that's if they do really well and they're not gonna max out every week. So they may be a little short and they may have to think about, buying not the brand they want right at that moment, and that's okay, you know?
It's great. Yeah. Yeah. And we've talked about it with our kids because sometimes uh, I've had kids be like, "Well, so and so's parents just pay for all their stuff, and my
Exactly.
friends can't believe that you make me pay for my own clothes and all these things." And I was just like, "Well, we can change it. You basically have a budget each month, and I can be in charge of it, but then I get to decide what clothes I buy you, and I get to make the decisions.
Exactly.
Would you rather
Exactly.
would you rather have me make the decisions, or do you wanna make those choices about your money?" It's really empowering them, s not depriving them.
Yeah, you're really good, Whitney, because that's exactly what you do. You say, "Hey, it's a privilege to be a member of the family bank. If you want to opt out, we'll go back to the allowance. We'll give you $10 a week or something instead of the big amount you can earn right now, and I'll decide. I'll make all the decisions." And
Yeah.
they're not going to do it. We never had one drop out.
No, no, me
It's all the
neither.
younger ones. The younger ones are trying to get in on it. They want their if you don't here's a really good point. What if you're out there listening and your youngest child is like 12 or 14? Can you still do this kind of a system? You can, but it's very different. You don't want to say to a 13-year-old, you know, what you want to say to an older child if you're starting is, look, honey, you've got 4 years till you're leaving for college. We really want you to be ready to go. So let's work out together an economy here where you can start having your own money and your own spending. So you treat them like a peer, like an adult, and they
Right,
really respond to it. But to be honest, it's not as fun as with the younger ones because the younger ones
right.
they're learning from the get go and they're figuring it all out. And I'll never forget. I'll tell you one funny little experience that drove it home to me. This is way back when our kids were very young. Sadie, our daughter Sadie, who was probably 9 or 10, she just started on the family bank, and she was with a friend. She had a little friend. I haven't thought about this for a while. There's some friends your kids get, and you're like, you wish their parents would move to Florida. This little girl she was just like, well, I get this, and I get that, and I can do this, and I can do that, and why can't you do this? And I overheard a conversation I'll never forget. They were in Sadie's room, the two of them, and she was saying just what you said. That's what reminded me of it. "Wait, you have to buy your own stuff? My mom just gives me that stuff." And she was going on and on. And and Sadie didn't say anything, and I'm getting kind of worried about the conversation. And then Sadie said, I wish I could remember her exact sentence, but it was something like, you know what I like about what we do? I get to choose stuff, and I feel like it's really mine when I buy it, something like that.
Ooh, she
And
got
for
it.
once in her life, this little braggy girl was just dumbfounded. She had nothing to say.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, it was a
That's
great
great.
memory.
That's a great story. Okay, so that makes sense, and that's where we are, with our kids. However, now we're getting into the age where,
Mm.
like, we're just on the cusp. Our son's about to come home from his mission. He earned half of his mission before he went, and
Mm,
then we matched the other half.
right, right.
But now we're trying to figure out, like, okay, what is our plan for college? And, like, and then, how do we help them? Do we help them with housing? All these things. Did you have a system in place? Did it depend on the college and what they did?
Yeah, we did, and ours was based on the fact that here's the issue with college.
Yeah.
Some are gonna go to very expensive schools, and some are gonna go to, junior college
Right,
or state
right.
universities, and what we wanted was to preserve the difference in value between those things, but also to have a system that was neutral so they wouldn't make a decision based on money or on convenience. In other words, we didn't want someone
Yeah.
to stay home and live at home so they could go to the local junior college because they didn't spend any money to do that. We wanted them to have full freedom. And so our deal was we will pay for the same things we would pay for if you're still here. We'll pay for your room and your board. If you go to Harvard, fine, we'll cover those things because we would cover them if you were living here.
Got it.
But let's work out together. It was a negotiating process. How much of the tuition do you think you should pay? And we had a kind of a complicated system, but in our case, we needed to because so many were going different places. And it was a sliding scale of that they would pay. The main thing they did was pay for the first year. Did your son go for a year? He didn't go to college before
No,
the
he went
mission.
straight to his
Yeah.
mission.
Okay.
And see, that's where we're torn. We're like,
Yeah.
so he earned $5,000 before he
Mm,
went on his
mm,
mission,
mm.
but then we didn't actually, for tax reasons and stuff, it's
Yeah,
better for
sure.
us to pay it. So we've
Sure.
paid it. So we still have that 5,000, and we're like, we didn't really think that through. Maybe we pay in full for the missions and then save that 5,000 that he earned,
Yeah.
and that goes toward college. So we're just like right at that decision point where we have to figure out what like, we're glad he saved that amount of money. That was great. But now we have to figure out what we're going to do with it.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing
Uh-huh.
about this family bank system is that money that they saved then, if you want, you keep it in this family bank. Some families, including ours, when the kids got older, instead of a family bank like a box, like a chest and so on that you manage, we actually turned it into an LLC, a limited partnership company. And by doing that, they were members of that and they had access to some of that money that they had put into that company. They were part owners of this family corporation, this LLC. And that allowed us that would, I'm not qualified to give you tax advice, but that had tax advantages. And so I think every family has to work that out, but
Right.
the principle behind it is keep some skin in the game. Have them
Exactly.
paying
Yeah.
some proportion of their tuition because
Yeah.
then they appreciate it. They realize that they actually realize the value of it, but they also realize that it's their education that they're buying and this sounds a little funny, but they become a little more demanding. It's like, I am paying for this education. I will change classes if I don't like this professor. The school
Yeah.
doesn't control me. I'm the one who pays for my school,
Right.
and
They're
I
my
want to
client.
they're my clients. And that, believe it or not, that's a powerful thing. A lot of kids get stuck in classes they don't like. They say, "Well, it's a requirement. They just put me here." No, you're in charge. If you have a problem with that, you can change it, you know? And
Yeah, I
once
loved
kids
shopping for
feel
professors.
exactly, yeah. The kids learn that first 2 or 3 weeks, the change period, they should go to lots of classes and end up with the ones that they really relate to, you know?
Yeah.
And we can teach that to kids in any case, but if they have this ownership feeling, like, "I paid for this, I'll decide," then they're much more capable of, managing their college.
Yeah. Well, and it's so interesting. My oldest, who's about to go to college, um, he wants to pay, like, he loves being in control and earning a lot of money, and he's very good with money. He's like, "No, I wanna pay for all of it. I wanna pay for all my housing, all my," and
Ooh.
I'm like, "That's a great in theory, but you've just been on a mission and you don't have the," he's like, "Well, I'll work," and but, you don't want him to also, like, do poorly in school because they're working so hard. So it's like we're gonna have to figure out a balance for him because he really wants to, like, be on his own and be in charge, which is a great, but we'll have to help him balance that, and I
That's
like your
marvelous. Yeah, that's rare. That's rare, and you're lucky
yes,
to have
yeah,
that. You'll have very different on others of your kids.
yes,
But
yes, I
here's a
my other kids are very different.
here's a little tip based on our experience. You get a kid like that, you say, "That's marvelous. That's exciting." And what you do is just be honest with them, just what you just said. "We don't want you to slow down or take longer to finish college because you have to work and so on.
Right.
So what we will do through this family bank," and in our case, it was now an LLC, the LLC will loan you the money
Ah,
to go through college, no interest, without any interest at all. And if you get a savvy kid, they're like, "Wow, I'll take all the money I can get with no interest," you know?
right. Oh, that's
But
great, yeah.
they'll also understand that and we'll work out the repayment plan. Let me just be a little more personal. We had a couple of kids that went to Wellesley and another one that went to Harvard and another one that went to Columbia. So we're talking about big amounts.
Yeah, yeah.
And and what we did is worked out this matching system where you go out and either raise the money or get scholarships. And this is something you start in high school. If you can get enough scholarships to pay half of your tuition, we will loan you the rest of it without any interest. So now it's like your son, wow, I'm actually paying for my whole thing through my scholarships and through this loan. And you to be honest, I hate to sound duplicitous, but you really don't care if they ever pay it back. What you
Right,
care about
right.
is that they felt like it was their own. If
Yeah,
the difference between a gift and a loan is huge. 'Cause the loan, I took the loan out, and it was a really good loan, and I don't have to pay any interest, but it's mine, and it's my education, you know?
yeah,
So consider
yeah.
the loan aspect of it
Oh,
when
I
you're
love
working.
that. Thank you. Yeah, yeah, because yeah, this is all new territory for us, and I was like, "We probably should have figured it out before now," but I don't know, it's it's here, so
Well, but you're lucky the oldest one's so savvy because now
yeah.
you can say, we're feeling our way here, help us work this out because it's gonna apply to your younger siblings."
Yes, for sure, for sure, yeah. Yeah, and it is nice that, like, it's so funny because with the first one, I was like, "Oh, we're so good at this. We're so good at this family economy and teaching kids about money," and then some of the other ones came around and were like, "Oh, maybe it wasn't us. Maybe it was just that kid."
That is so true. One more quick story. We that was like it was with us. Maybe we're just blessed. The oldest one was so responsible. It got down to number 3, and he's like, "Nah, I don't think I'll join the family economy." "Well, don't you wanna get this money, Josh?" Don't really need it." And he really didn't. I mean, he'd wear the same pair of pants the whole year, you know, he didn't really care. And and it's lucky he wasn't the first one or we'd have felt really frustrated, but we just sort of said,
Right.
"Oh, okay, fine," you know, and so he'd watch his sisters get their payday every time, and he didn't care. And then guess what happened? He got to the age where he really, really he was like 10 or something, but he was very quantitative, and he just wanted a computer so bad, and he wanted a certain one. And he's like, "Dad, can I join the family economy? I gotta earn this money. I gotta have this." So you gotta be a little patient and you wait till they feel the actual need for something. But if you get one that doesn't want to do it, don't force them. Just say, fine, you know, you can,
Yeah, you
nobody
opt
has to
in.
join. Yeah, you gotta opt in.
I like that. That's so good. Okay, great. Let's see. So what about you mentioned a little bit teaching them about investing. They're earning interest with you, which is great. We've done kind of a matching program with them when they save, we match. Um, but at what point do they actually get investment accounts? I guess you said 16 they get a brokerage?
Yeah, at 16 we get him a brokerage account. And I'm going to shift gears a little and get into part of the grandparenting, because you may have some listeners who are
Yes, yes,
where
please.
you are and they're getting into that. For us, a Schwab account has been, and you could do this through other companies as well, but that was our reference point. I liked having their account there because they and most brokerages do something like this. They have Schwab slices. You can give them $100 and pick up to 20 different companies that you like, and Schwab will split it up and put it in those companies. So
Okay.
they're saying, well, what company do I like? And they're a lot of times a pretty good investment strategy for kids is invest in the stuff you like, because lots of kids like it and it'll probably do well. So they would just do their investment with their Schwab. And then bridging into the grandparents thing, one of the real joys for us has been with our grandkids saying, you used the word match cannot be overemphasized. And it doesn't have to be a 50-50 match. Any kind of match, the kid has skin in the game, right?
Yeah.
And so we wanted all of these grandkids from a very young age to have the option if they wanted, and if their parents wanted. Again, if you're a grandparent, be very careful that you do any of this with the parents, discuss it, and be on the same page. That we've
Yeah,
seen some
partnership.
Oh,
Yeah.
we've seen horrors. Talk about entitlement. Grandparents can just screw up the whole entitlement thing, because here the parents are trying to teach responsibility. Grandparents are just giving them money. So you gotta understand the parents are the stewards and you're just the helpers. But we did that due diligence, and then we said, okay, you grandkids, if you want, you can open a Roth IRA when you're 8 years old. It'll have to be a custodial account. Until you're 18, you can't have one on your own, so it'll have to be with your parent. But any money you put in there will match it in this Roth IRA. And the beautiful thing about that is all the rules are already done for you. A kid can't put in money you give him. The only money you can put into an IRA is money you've earned. So you've either got to have a pay stub, or if you're a babysitter, you got to keep some kind of a record. I got this much money. If you mow lawns, you keep some kind of a record, and you can put that money that you earned into your Roth, and then we would match it. You can have a view only account. I don't mean to get technical, but the grandparent can have a view only. So I see when they make a deposit and I match it. And so here's this kid who goes and mows a lawn and saves $100. And he says, wow, if I could put $50 of that 100 into my Roth account, grandfather will, sorry, I'll turn this off. Grandfather will match it. So he puts in the $50 of his 100, and grandfather matches it, and he's got $100 in his Roth. And he understands that a Roth is to be used for later in life.
Yeah.
He may not save it till he retires. There's a lot of provisions where he can use it for college, or he can do other
Uh-huh.
things with it. And so grandparents can really, and there's some grandparents who have a grandparents bank, by the way. And if the parents are okay with that, and the parents don't want to do it or can't do it or whatever,
Yeah.
it can work beautifully for a grandparent too. That's where you save your money. Grandpa wants to help or whatever, and we're on board with it. So there's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of that in this new book that we're going to offer to your readers, the Grandparenting Blueprint.
Yes. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that book?
Well, it's been so much fun because grandparenting is very different than parenting, and the first difference is you got to understand you're not in charge, and if you try to take over, or if you try to be the one that makes the decisions, or if you try to tell your kids how to parent, it's just going to go south for you in a big hurry. But if you
Yeah.
understand that you're just the helper and the consultant, and if there's a big section in there about meeting on a regular basis with your kids, so that the grandparents and the parents are having dinner together once a quarter or something and discussing each of these kids. And the parents are telling the grandparents about the issues each one has, or the gifts they see in them, or what their characteristics are. And the grandparents are taking notes, asking questions, and essentially saying, how can I help? And the parents are the ones to say, well, we could use a little help with so-and-so on such and such. And it works out really beautifully. But the fun part of, I'll just say this, the last thing I'll say about the book is that my grandkids helped me write it. I have certain principles I've tried to teach them over the years, and we call them secrets, the grandfather's secrets. And they each had the opportunity to write their experiences with these secrets, how experiences they'd had in real life. And they're little things, like I'll give you an example. Secret number 4 is good popularity comes from being nice to everyone, and it lasts. Bad popularity comes from only being nice to certain people, and it doesn't. And
Nice.
so they've written their little experiences, you know, and especially, you know, kids who are in middle school and so on really gravitate toward that secret, and they're write their little experience. And we didn't edit it at all. We didn't even correct the spelling. We just put it right in the book at the end of
That's
that
so great.
chapter.
What a fun experience to write a book with your grandkids. That's so great.
And they get part of the royalties. Now that brings it back to the
To the
economic
money.
discussion we're having, right? They get part of the
Totally.
royalties.
Oh, that's so great. I love it. I love it. So we have a discount code for listeners, and that sounds like a great Mother's Day, Father's Day gift coming up here for
Good thinking.
the grandparents in your life. So
Right.
so
I
that
like
sounds
it.
great. Well, is there anything that we haven't covered?
Well, the last word I would say is don't expect a quick fix, and don't get discouraged if it doesn't work perfectly right away. This is a work in progress, and you know, you get better and better at it as you go along, and admit that to the kids. I mean, be open with them and say, hey, we're going to try this, and we really think it'll be good for all of us, and here's what it'll do for you, and so on. But help us out with this, and if we have to adjust it, we will, you know. And don't expect it to work perfectly, because it never will, but it'll
Right.
just the effort
And
you make will pay dividends.
And as we discussed, you don't want it to. You want some failure and some learning
Yeah.
and mistakes and some really terrible purchases.
Right. Yeah,
That's
you can
great.
learn a huge amount from when a kid spends $150 for a pair of jeans. That is a beautiful chance to learn.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this has been so great. I really appreciate it. I really wish that teenager watching you on Oprah could have seen us having a chat today. It's so funny.
Those were the days.
Thank you for tuning in to the Family Lab podcast. There are 2 more episodes on money management coming this month. The goal is for you to take the pieces you like from each of them into your own family lab and create a system that works for you. Thanks to my podcast manager, Kimberly Hansen, and my assistant, Haley McElroy, for all their help. And a special thank you to my mom, Susan Singley, for playing the theme music to this podcast. She used to play this song all the time when we were growing up, and to me, it's the soundtrack of motherhood.